Adventurous kids explore with education and learning what a wild life is in the Everglades. I want to explore the Museum of Discovering Science. What plants do butterflies like? I want to know about Key West. Adventurous kids, learning and fun. Adventurous kids!
Today I'm going to tell you about heredity. Heredity is when certain traits are passed from the parents to the children, but remember that parents inherit traits from their parents and so on as far back as your family tree goes. Traits are characteristics such as eye color, height, and athletic ability. Heredity is passed through genes in the DNA molecule. In biology, the study of heredity is called genetics. Everything alive inherits traits. Back in the 1800s, a scientist named Gregor Mendel used pea plants to study how traits like height, color, and shape are inherited. Gregor Mendel is considered the father of the science of genetics. Through experimentation, he found that certain traits were inherited following specific patterns. Gregor Mendel studied inheritance by experimenting with peas in his garden. Peas work as an excellent test subject as they can self-pollinate, cross-fertilize, and have several traits that only have two forms. This enabled Mendel to easily control his experiments and reduce the possibility of the outcomes to something he could record and manage. When Gregor Mendel crossed short pea plants with tall pea plants, he noticed that not only tall pea plants were produced, whatever produced these short pea plants seemed to disappear. Gregor Mendel called that tall height a dominant factor because it dominated or covered up the short height form. He called the short height trait recessive factor. By the second generation of pea plants, those recessive plants forms cropped up again. After tons of research, Gregor Mendel was able to predict that on average, 1 out of every 4 pea plants would be short. Each plant has 2 genes that determine height. The tall gene is dominant, which means it only takes 1 tall gene to make a plant tall. It takes 2 short genes to make a plant short. In the 19th century, a British geneticist named Reginald Punnett also experimented with peas and developed something called the Punnett square. The Punnett square lets you predict the likelihood of what you would get if you crossed a tall plant with a short plant. An offspring gets 1 gene from each parent, either a tall or a short gene. Each plant produced by these 2 plants will be tall because each one has one of those dominant tall genes. But what happens if 2 of these new plants produce offspring? There are lots of ways this could turn out, but the most likely result is that we would get 3 tall plants and 1 short plant. Gregor Mendel studied 7 traits of the pea plant: seed color, seed shape, flower position, flower color, pod shape, pod color, and the stem length. There were 3 major steps to Mendel's experiments. First, he produced a parent generation of true breeding plants. He made these by self-fertilizing the plants until he knew they bred true to the 7 traits. For example, the purple flowering plants always produced seeds that made purple flowers. He called these plants the pea generation for parent. Next, he produced a second generation of plants, one by breeding 2 different true breeding pea plants. He then produced a third generation of plants F2 by self-pollinating 2 F1 generation plants. that had the same traits. Gregor Mendel found that the F1 generation all produced the same trait, even though the two parents had different traits. The offspring always had the same trait. For example, if you bred a pea plant with a purple flower with a pea plant with a white flower, all of the offspring F1 plants would have purple flowers. This is because the purple flower is a dominant trait. In the F2 generation, he found that 75% of the flowers were purple and 25% were white. Even though both parents had purple flower, 25% of the offspring had white flowers. This turned out to be because of a recessive gene or trait was present in both parents. The idea that an offspring receives one unit of inheritance from each parent is called the theory of segregation. Gregor Mendel only figured this stuff out after carefully studying 30,000 individual pea plants over an 80-year period. Gregor Mendel's work was rejected by his fellow scientists while he was alive. It wasn't until later that his work was rediscovered and confirmed through further experimentation. Thanks for watching this Adventurous Kids episode. Bam!